everybody. My name is Mel K. Whaley with Tennessee Advocacy Talk, TENNTALK.org. And today I have Clarence with us, and he's going to discuss a little bit about what he does here in the city for Knoxville, and definitely some advice that we could possibly give to other communities around the area just for possibly advocating some change. So Clarence, you want to talk a little bit about your organization, what it is, what you do?
First, I want to thank you and Tennessee Advocacy Talk for allowing me to be here today and speak about what we do for the city of Knoxville. My name is Clarence Vaughn. I serve as the Executive Director for our Police Advisory and Review Committee. So to shorten that up, basically I'm the police liaison for the city through the Community Relations Department. What it is primarily is civilian oversight. So some people may be familiar with a lot of the cases and things that are going on throughout the country when it comes between communities of color and law enforcement. We see a lot of times where young African American males become victims or become potential suspects or even victims of situations where they're fatally killed, with interaction with police officers. But you also see the positive side too, where law enforcement is engaging their community and getting involved. So we fall right in between that. I serve as a director, and we've had this service for the city of Knoxville for now 20 years. This September 22nd, 1998 2018 will make 20 years for PARC, for short. Being in existence for the city. And it really all started because based on a conversation of public distrust at that time of law enforcement. There was a lot of civil and civic unrest when it comes to community and their feelings of how the police were policing their communities. So they wanted to have more of a civilian-led review of police officers' interactions and their policies. So since that time to now, PARC has definitely done a lot with changing policies and procedures of the Knoxville Police Department, engaging community members to get involved in the process of finding out what they do, how they can be involved. Also, we're serving with PARC and bringing information to us, and if it's be a complaint or be a concern about engaging with a law enforcement officer, public safety, we're here to provide that service. So one benefit we really provide to the city is that transparency. Here in the state of Tennessee, we're the longest standing. Memphis, Tennessee had one prior to us, but then they kind of dissolved, and then they also came back again, and they're currently active. So in the state of Tennessee right now, currently active civilian oversight boards, you have two, which is Knoxville and Memphis.
And why, so for everybody, basically, I guess it's just to have the community give back as a voice if they see something that is unethical as far as the law enforcement goes with the citizens. And that just shocks me a little bit that there's only two organizations that are formed in the state of Tennessee that does this. Is there any particular reason why do you think Memphis and Knoxville is the only ones that have this type of organization?
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot of reasons why. A lot of times, honestly, when they started this, the Police Advisory Review Committee here in the city of Knoxville didn't have a lot of fans. Because you look at police officers, your normal patrol officer has a lot of hierarchy and different levels of command. He has his immediate sergeant, his lieutenant. The lieutenant has a captain. That captain has a deputy chief. That deputy chief has a chief. On top of that, that chief has federal law enforcement that can get involved, whether it be the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations or the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And then you have the Department of Justice. So the levels of oversight in law enforcement is very extensive. They have a really strong and vetted process when it comes to what the officers are doing, what type of trainings they're receiving. And a lot of times the community involvement piece and the civilian piece is not well accepted in some cases. But we're very, very thankful that Knoxville was very proactive. Former Mayor Victor Ash was the person that helped create PARC and made an executive order, like I said, on September 22nd, 1998, that said we're going to have this because we want to make sure that community members know that we really have nothing to hide. I think our former chief, David Rouse, said it best, that the civilian oversight gives you a good gauge and a temperature of what the relationship's like with the community members. So we offer an open forum. We offer meetings out in the community, throughout the community, to have people talk about and citizens talk about what their concerns are and not have to feel like they have to go down to a police precinct or even go here to the mayor's office and go to the court office or even go down to anywhere where you feel uncomfortable. Not to say those places are uncomfortable, but give them more of a sense where, hey, this is civilian-led. So a lot of cities push back against that. A lot of city councils and even county commissions push back against that because it does open up a lot of doors for good things and also some things that could be particularly difficult for a city to handle. But I think having it is extremely important versus not having it, because once you have it, you give full accountability to not only the officers, but also the citizens. Citizens become more aware of what to do when they have the engagement with officers. They are encouraged to know about positive things that the officers are doing in the community, ways they can get training, ways they can find out more about how they can get more involved in the process when it comes to public safety. And officers learn more about what citizens really feel when they have that engagement, better ways to interact and build strong relationships with communities. So we do a lot with KPD, the Knoxville Police Department, on that regard.
Yeah. So, what are the statistics, like the recent statistics? And I'm curious about, I guess, what type of grievances or anything like that is most common around this Knoxville area.
Yeah. Well, I'll say last year we had a total of 86 complaints. And primarily the complaints will be basically focused on unprofessional conduct, what we call unbecoming conduct. And that's rudeness. That can be an officer using a high tone or different things of that nature. The second, probably most current type of complaint that we'll see is failure to investigate. Sometimes that can be a family member that lost a loved one, and they felt like everything wasn't done properly in the case and things were left out. And then that's difficult for anyone, but that can be a lot of times. And also we have something called Citizens Advocate. So citizen has two options. They can either go to the Internal Affairs Unit if they have any complaints against a police officer with the city of Knoxville, or they can come to PARC, the Police Advisory Review Group that we have. And also with us, that we have not just with complaints, we have something called Citizens Advocate. So if you're driving home or you regularly see somebody who is suspicious or in suspicious activity and you don't feel comfortable calling law enforcement, you can call here to the mayor's office, Mayor of the City of Knoxville, Mayor Madeline Harrell's office, and they'll direct you to us here at the Police Advisory Review Committee, and we will address any issues you have by sharing that information directly with whatever department can assess it. So we've done things from neighborhood crimes, helped to set up neighborhood watch groups, help with crosswalks for students who were walking across dangerous highways or dangerous pathways.
Yeah.
Looked at illegal activity taking place in neighborhoods and had KPD get involved with that. So we look at it from a public safety side and a complaint side as well. But those are the two things I would say that we try to look at to make sure when it comes to statistics, we have a low number when it comes to racial profiling, bias-based policing. It's probably one of our lowest numbers, but the highest numbers would be more so the officers' engagement and that feeling of rudeness and the harsh tones that could be used from an officer. That's probably the number one complaint that we receive.
Okay, and do you have any statistics on having an organization like yours in this type of city compared to a city that doesn't have it? Do you see the numbers, dramatically are higher in those cities without organizations like yours?
I don't have that as far as to my knowledge. I don't have that as far as exact numbers, but there are studies out there that shows the difference of having some type of citizen review board or civilian oversight versus not having. And you look at, for instance, Chicago Police Department. There's a lot of issues that went on with that department, and they came back to say a lot of their practices were not proper in a sense, but they have a very strong civilian oversight body. So that can still play to say, okay, well, you had these practices, but the civilian oversight this year, but why is there not any differences? So I think the biggest thing I see in cities that have and cities that don't have is the fact of having it open.
Okay.
Having the books open, having a conversation open, where they can meet with the leaders in that law enforcement, whether it be the chief of police or the deputy chiefs, and have those conversations versus not being able to. Because most cities that don't have civilian oversight, let's say, God forbid, a loved one is killed by a police officer. The loved one could have been doing something not proper or doing something that was allegedly illegal, but you won't have a lot of transparency. Or even if it's a smaller situation, you're pulled over for a traffic stop, and you want to complain against the officer, you only really have one route. Versus the city of Knoxville, you have multiple routes, being ourselves and the Internal Affairs Unit. And coming to PARC, you have an independent review of that incident. So if you have a situation where you feel like an officer didn't behave in a professional manner, you have that outreach that you can reach out to. Versus some cities, they don't have that, and that makes things more and more challenging with that relationship.
Okay. Well, and that leads me to another question I had was, how are the police officers embracing this? Like, what's their view of having some type of committee review board like this?
Well, initially, from my knowledge, when I first started this role, I was a former banker, so I worked in banking for quite some time, and I wanted to get to know more about civilian oversight myself, too. So I met with our former chief, David Roush, I met with Mr. Bernie Bernstein, who started the Mayor's Council on Policing, which is known as the Bernstein Commission. And initially, yeah, they weren't in favor of it. Especially a lot of your fraternal order police and your unions are not, I won't say favor, but they look at it as a way, well, hey, these are civilians coming into our world. So I said initially, I think there was a lot of pushback, but then they saw the benefit to say that we're not here to be an adversarial role, or play an adversarial role. We're here to make sure that citizens know not only is Knoxville a welcoming place, but if you have any concerns or have any issues that may come up, Knoxville Police Department has nothing to hold back. They're fully to give you full information that you need by using PARC. We have access to everything, records, citation reports, video. We have access to everything, so citizens can feel assured that they have that. But there are some officers, I'm sure, that have concerns, and I can understand that because the world they live in is a very difficult world to operate and work in on a daily basis, constantly putting your life at risk for us. And to have a citizen say, hey, what are you doing, and what is that about, can be challenging, but I would say since my time here, it's been a great relationship. That's what really helps me work very effectively, is because of relationships I built with the Knoxville Police Department and their senior leadership.
Okay, and you said you guys offer training to the force. So can you talk a little bit about what kind of training that you offer, and potentially like what your training focus is right now?
Yeah, great question. So we do offer training. We do the cultural competency training every year for the new recruits. So any new recruit class that come into Knoxville Police Department, they have a cultural competency training, and I lead that training along with volunteers from the community. So we have individuals from the Muslim community, the LGBTQ community, Latino community, all different walks, different religious communities. And what we do is really talk about how do you engage with different people from different backgrounds. What do those individuals feel about law enforcement in their community? Some people are from different countries, so they have a different view of law enforcement, anybody with a so-called authority with a badge and a shield. So how do you engage, and how do you make sure that you are being the best servant that you can be? We talk about that. We have small group discussions on ways to be more effective and be more intentional about getting plugged into those communities and ways to do that. So that's one big training that we do. And we also train them on civilian oversight and what it is. We actually have that training coming up August 13th, 2 Mondays from now. And we'll do the training about what civilian oversight is, what PARC provides to citizens, but also provides to law enforcement, to help them know that, hey, we're here to make sure if you're doing things the right way, we're going to be there to support you 100%. If we feel like things can be improved, we'll give you some recommendations and say, hey, these are some things that we feel like need to be accounted for. And I say we being our board. So we're also supported by a 7-member board. Some have law enforcement background, former FBI agent. We have some with law degrees and still practice law now. And there's some community folks. So having all that plugged in, I think it really helps to make a real effective process of how law enforcement engages with everyone here.
Yeah, and I'm just amazed that it's a 20-year anniversary this year. Like that's just amazing. So what is the main focus, I guess, for the new initiatives coming up, or the current initiatives that you guys are trying to implement, and especially with this 20-year mark that you have a lot of tenure going on. So with that kind of stability and everything, where's your focus at right now, and your current needs, and anything that you want to advocate for your organization?
Well, I would say our main focus is make sure that we still remain visible, but also people have an awareness of that we have civilian oversight. Even though it's been 20 years, a lot of times people still don't know the fact that we have this service available to citizens. It's still mind-boggling in a sense. So the thing is to make sure that we are ever focused on how do we get out and engage with the community more. We were privileged to have an intervention plan done by some University of Tennessee doctoral candidates, and the main focus of that was about marketing, about sharing information about civilian oversight. So that's really our plan going forward past the 20 years, is how can we get more engaged and make sure we're visible, but there's a sense of awareness. Another thing too is looking at what policies we need to focus on in the coming years. We have a new change by government leaders from the county and city level will be coming up soon. So what do we need to focus on and engage from information that we're hearing from community members, and make sure that we say, okay, this is some concerns, especially now with our new appointed chief, Chief Eve Thomas, our first female chief in the history of the Knoxville Police Department. We're very thankful to have a great working relationship with her. But we want to make sure that since she's starting on her new platform, that we also not only remain a part of that, but we can share some insight to say, this is what community members have been saying. These are some things we feel like needs to be focused on. And one of those things is dealing with the limited force that officers have for our sheer population of officers we have in Knoxville, and also looking at ways to balance that time. So the chief has actually said that she already had a focus on balancing time for officers, but they're not working extenuous time for overtime and can potentially make bad decisions that can impact themselves and others. So little things like that. So we're always looking at that and trying to stay up to date on what's going on in other cities that may be beneficial for Knoxville.
Okay, great. And so if anybody's watching this, if they're interested in possibly forming some type of collaboration and organization like yours in their own city, I mean, are you guys willing to like help another city out, or like what's that process if somebody's like, well, that's great, we need that in our community, how do we get that?
That's great, and thank you for that. Yes, so we're definitely open to sharing anything they may need, how we were formed, what our city charter states, what our powers are, what the responsibilities are for the board members who are volunteer board members, but also we're part of the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. Okay. So all that word is saying that it's a national organization that over 100 plus civilian oversight bodies from all over the country and other countries are part of this organization. So that's a great resource and tool for us to have that. And we have a direct connection with NACO, we call it NACO for short, that can tell you the framework, the process, and give you all the information that you need, so we can definitely connect any city or anybody that's interested in that and let them know what that process looks like.
Okay, great. And your meetings are quarterly, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you about anything that we talked to today, how would they do that?
Well, the best way first is like us on Facebook. Yes. So go on Facebook, like us on Facebook. A lot of our information is on there about our upcoming meetings, anything that we have as far as we want citizens to know about. Mm-hmm. But also I can be reached here in my office, 865-215-3869. The number here directly is 865-215-3869. In most cases, you won't get a voicemail. You speak directly to myself. And if I don't get the call, I definitely promptly give you a call right back. You can also go to our website through the city of Knoxville at knoxvilletn.gov/PARC, so PARC, or just simply Google it. But reach out to us if you have any questions or just want to know more about what civilian oversight is, what the benefits are. If you have some issues in your city that you may want to discuss, you may have an entity there that you may not be aware of, then we can connect you through being a member of NACO. We have a listing of all the civilian oversight agencies in the country. Mm-hmm. So you may be in the city, you may have a situation that have happened with a law enforcement officer, but you just wasn't aware that there was something like that can serve you. Let us know too, and we'd be glad to help in any way.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I find it important to have a conversation with Clarence and do this interview just because it does take a whole team together to help lower the crime in the area. That has to do with the mental health and substance abuse industry as well. And to have a collaboration where the citizens can feel safe with their force just makes a whole difference in a community. And we definitely have seen the statistics here in Knoxville. So again, if you guys are interested in getting one formed in your city or area, or you would like to attend the meetings, we'll have the information right here on the bottom and you can reach out. So thank you so much, Clarence.
Thank you so much, Mel. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You have a good day. Bye-bye.